From January 20th, 2012, Chelsea manager Andre Villas-Boas has added his backing to calls for a change to the youth development system in England. Chelsea manager has backed the idea of possible feeder clubs. Which has already been suggested by the likes of former Liverpool boss Rafael Benitez and Blues predecessor Carlo Ancelotti. Villas-Boas admits England should look to Spanish football, where top-flight clubs field B teams in the lower divisions, some of whom even play in the second tier. The Barcelona B team, I think, do play in the first division in Spain. So, but basically, the Portuguese tactician believes non-competitive action is hampering some of England's best young talent. The idea of feeder clubs has long been dismissed by the Football League, and any suggestion has never carried any favour with supporters either. But Villas-Boas feels that having feeder clubs in the same country is an idea that warrants investigation. The youth development system in England is not right. In my belief, there is plenty of effort and talks to get it right, but in my opinion, it is not, said the Chelsea boss. He also said the reserve team league is not competitive, the youth levels are not competitive enough, the FA Youth Cup does it favour talent or competition. In my opinion, there is a missing link between age groups and all competitions. There should be national championships played between teams from around the country. The older ones should play nationally, the younger ones should play regionally. You promote more talent and competitiveness, and it is that which generates talent and willingness to drive. Now, I would like to say, do you know what? It is actually quite an interesting idea, having feeder clubs in the same country, and like having Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea B teams. I don't know about playing at championship level, but I think definitely with the conference, I think it'd work. But at the same time, like mid-season loans, emergency loans, and that sort of stuff, the feeder system is kind of already in place with the Premier League teams, like when Aaron Ramsey came back after his injury. John Joe Shelby is a recent example as well of going down to championship clubs and basically, well, not quite cutting your teeth there, but at the end of the day, them getting their game time down in the so-called lower divisions, without trying to show any disrespect. I think it's an interesting idea and can work well if done right. Because you look at how they do it in Spain with the Barcelona B team. Obviously, they are reaping the dividends of it now with a world-beaten side. And it's no coincidence that Barca are sweeping almost all before them at the moment. No coincidence. And that stuff takes years. As the old saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. I think a B team would be quite an interesting idea. But facebook.com/Pitstalk, twitter.com/Pitstalk. And guys, what do you reckon? What do you feel about it?
Well, just jumping in there, might as well. To be honest, I disagree with you. I reckon what AVB's proposing is a ridiculous idea, especially about having feeder clubs in
in the same country.
What, in the same country. Yeah. To be honest, how does that make competition? I don't get it. If everyone's already nicking players from other teams, it's just inducing the fact that come on, nick more players from other teams, from smaller teams. Smaller teams won't really be able to really rise because everyone's just moving to the cream of the crop, as they do in Spain.
No, that's an interesting point. I mean, the way it fosters competition is because if you've got your B team competing in, let's say, League One, they're competing for that title and competing to avoid getting relegated. So that's where the competition aspect comes in.
How can you have your B... And another thing, how can you have your B team playing in the championship?
If they've worked
that's another thing that always baffled me about Spain. How can you have your B team can't even if your B team was to win that league, they can't even get promoted into the same league as you. It defeats the object. Well, especially with what we've got over here in England.
Well, it's done at amateur league. It's done at amateur league level, and from obviously you referenced the Ibis before. I mean, we've got two old Actonian teams in our league. I think one's a 6s and one's a 5s. So it happens already at amateur league level, but at and it works.
That's why it's amateur.
But at professional level, and I think they do it in semi-pro as well. But I'm not. Don't quote me on that. But I don't know. I think it could potentially work. But
yeah, I'm quite content with the reserve. I don't think you need to introduce the B team because, as you said, in the championship, it's a bit disrespectful to the teams that are already there. And how would you introduce it? Like, you know, would you just like say, well, you can't be there, and here's a few B teams, and just throw them in? Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like out of the blue. So, and Alzavinga spoke about it. He was asked about it on Friday in the press conference, and he said it's a bit disrespectful to the teams at the stadiums. Where would you play? You know, and because Arsenal used Barnet for many years, Underhill, and he was like, could we just say, oh, hello Barnet, can our B team just use your ground? And you don't even know if you're going to get a yes. So it creates so many problems. So I think it's just better off just sticking with the B team, even though the La Masia system that uses Barcelona's B team is really successful.
See, now, I'm going to be on this debate, and I'm going to say two things. One, I think the idea itself is very, very good. But where it falls down, as everybody else is kind of putting out, is the application. It's not practical in any kind of way, right? And this is the thing that I'm going to say to counteract all of this idea of having a B team and putting them in a lower division, all the rest of it, right? If you are really, and I mean really and truly, dedicated to developing your younger talents and you want to see them get game time, you know what you do? You send them out on loan. You don't keep them at the club where they're going to be training, and you're going to say, oh, this is one of the greatest young players we've had for X amount of time, right? But this player doesn't play. And I'm talking specifically to Andre Villas-Boas, and I'm talking about Josh McEachran, right? Yep. Josh McEachran's getting loaded till the cows come home, but you don't see him play. Yeah, how is he going to develop if you don't play him?
Yeah.
So the next best thing, if you're not going to play him, send him to a club where he's going to play on loan. And when he comes back, you get a better player with even more experience. So,
but that's why the B team idea is coming in, though. That's why it's being suggested.
But that is exactly the reason why you don't need it, because the option to send young players on loan is already there. Look at what a loan Sunderland did for Danny Welbeck, for example.
Yeah, of course.
You can't tell me that wasn't beneficial, and that was in the same league.
Look at Daniel Sturridge.
So if you, as I say,
at Bolton.
If you and Daniel Sturridge as well. So if you really, really, really to help your young players, committed to developing your young players, don't hold them back and be like, oh, you know what, this is one of the best young players you'll never see, because we won't play him, but we'll tell you all about him anyway. Not play him, they'll get frustrated and want to leave. And I'm using Ravel Morrison as one of my examples right now.
Well, he might be. Well,
he's potentially leaving. Yeah, he could potentially be going on the continent. And the whole reason why he's going on the continent, he's not getting game time. But if he was out on loan and getting game time, when he comes back to Man United, he's an even more better player. Therefore, taking the whole suggestion of having a B team and putting those B teams in a lower league, and taking that and leaving it outside, it's just not good.